Hey everybody, welcome back to Leosity. This is the last of the Divination series. Um, and it's been kind of a little break from it because of a lot of things going on. But one thing that I thought would be worth covering is just sort of a miscellaneous, because I talked about the I Ching, I talked about tarot briefly, but really what I find fascinating about divination, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up, is because there are so many ways of going about it, but they all seem to fall into two camps. There's either the orderly form of divination, wherein there's a lot of series of rules that you have to follow, and then there's the what I would call like the subconscious divination, where it's really more based on something that you observe and see a pattern in. And that goes hand in hand with the theory that I have that a lot of things that we regard as like ESP is actually just our subconscious tying together a series of cues and seeing patterns that we're not consciously aware of, and from there making actual deductions, not prophecies. And I can think of no better example in that than the latter camp of divination. So, chomancy, seeing things in tea leaves, um, reading the entrails of birds, which is a little bit of a hybrid because it is complicated and there's like a lot of rules. But that's something that, for example, the Greco-Roman cultures, the Etruscans, the Romans, and the Greeks, all took part in. Let's see, astrology is probably ties in with tarot and the I Ching as being complicated. In other words, the former camp, a lot of rules. But tarot bridges the gap between those two and the more subconscious related divinations in the sense that the way people interpret things is, it factors in. Whereas in the case of the I Ching, you're given rather specific results that, of course, you can interpret, but it's a little more rigid. It's a little more fixed. Same thing with astrology. It's more rigid and fixed, excluding, of course, like the magazine and newspaper readings that are deliberately broad for the purpose of people interpreting it however they want to. There's a wonderful example of astrology in that respect being debunked by James Randi, where he makes use of erroneous, deliberately so, readings that people are just, absolutely in love with, even though they're complete nonsense, because they're so broad they interpret them however they want. Whereas in the case of the what I keep calling the subconscious means of divination, like reading tea leaves and coffee grounds and clouds and to a lesser extent bird entrails and things of that sort, there's an aspect of it where what's really happening is you're looking at something that's chaotic and random, completely random, and you're seeing what you see. So it's kind of like a Rorschach test in that respect. And so the things that you see give you a glimpse into how your subconscious is taking part in that pattern recognition. And the greatest example that I can think of, that's actually used on a scientific level in psychiatry, not for revealing the future, but revealing certain things that a person might not be cognitively aware about themselves and the things they're going through, would be an actual Rorschach test, or even more so, this is where I was going with this, analyzing dreams. Because, a lot of cultures believe that dreams are prophetic, and a lot of people have anecdotal evidence wherein they've had a dream that came true. And then on the flip side, you have actual psychiatry, which doesn't follow the scientific method, but is regarded, at least in modernity, as sort of a true science, even though I do disagree with that on a few levels. They're looking at dreams to understand the fundamental nature of your subconscious and things that you might be burying that you need to acknowledge. Well, similarly, assuming my theory is right, that people often misinterpret pattern recognition on a subconscious level as ESP, when really it's like Sherlock Holmes style deduction on the part of your subconscious, and that's where these things are coming true. If that's the case, then dreams would be a phenomenal way of analyzing and interpreting things that could come about in the future. Because what's really happening is you're being bombarded by data throughout your daily life, and you're actually evaluating these things. You're just not evaluating them consciously, and then when you go to sleep and dream, those things are evaluated a lot more rigorously, and it's our way of dealing with that bombardment of information, because we only think about a fraction of the things that we're actually exposed to. So that's just the last divination episode. That's just my explanation for divination and why it's been so prominent throughout the era, throughout different historical, really irrespective of culture and irrespective of, uh, of time. Divination is something that's pretty constant, universal, and I would argue that even in a utopian, pseudo socialist, leftist kind of Star Trek future where everybody's just rational and all that, I still think divination would be an extremely popular and common thing, and people might act like they look into it ironically, but I think there's a level of sincerity that would be pretty constant because it's a fundamental part of being human. So that's all I got. Like, share, subscribe, keep asking questions. Bye.